Good evening. Welcome to the 2007 fall edition of the CCEW Final Presentations. My name is Daniel Pullen, and I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director for the Center for the Creation of Economic Wealth. The program is in its still relative infancy. We were, I guess, operationally founded in the spring of 2006, and so what you'll be seeing tonight is the third rendition of CCEW Interns' Final Presentations. We are in and around about 50 students that have been through the program in a variety of capacities and are continuing to broaden our influence across the student body and hopefully across the state of Oklahoma in our pursuit of economic development. While the program is relatively new, the idea itself is not. It is the product of, I guess, intellectual germination of three very talented individuals who we always like to recognize, really the founding fathers of the program. The first is President David Bourne here at the university. The second is Gene Rainbolt, the chairman of Bank First Corp. And the third is with us here tonight, Dr. Skip Porter, the former Dean of the College of Engineering and Vice President for Technology Development here at OU. It's really the product of these three gentlemen's intellectual capacity that thought about the role the university can play in accelerating the growth and diversification of Oklahoma's economy, and to do so in such an innovative way by marrying the talents of our top faculty and our top students. So please join me in recognizing Dr. Skip Porter. So I see a lot of friendly faces here tonight, so I appreciate your continued support of the program. Hopefully you're enjoying the times you do associate with CCEW. But for those of you who are new, I do want to take just a few moments to describe at a high level what CCEW is and sort of how it works. There are three primary components to the CCEW. There is the interaction of our thought leaders, i.e. Our top faculty inventors who create some element of intellectual property. We then marry that thought leadership with the enthusiasm and energy of talented interdisciplinary students, both undergrads and graduates from across the university. But the secret sauce to the program is when we add an element of the private sector. We recruit very distinguished, accomplished executives from the corporate environment to come in and lend their wisdom and maturity and overall business experience to the process to guide the students in their activities and to provide counsel to the inventors as we move the technology from the laboratory to the marketplace. The CCEW experience, at least from the student's perspective, can be broken down into really four elements. It all starts off at the beginning of every semester with a boot camp. And this is a weekend-long crash course in the entrepreneurial process and how do you commercialize intellectual property. So by the end of those 2 to 3 days, they have a pretty good understanding of what it takes, at least sequentially, to create economic wealth. We then supplement that initial broad education with a weekly class where we discuss individualized components of that process. Typically, it involves in-class discussion, oftentimes facilitated by a distinguished visitor with specific experience in one aspect. So for example, if the topic is venture capital one evening, we will bring in a real-life venture capitalist who can interact with our students, talk about how deals get made, how they sometimes don't get made, and how their technologies that they're working on relate. Outside of the traditional classroom setting, though, the majority of the hours are spent in commercialization teams. Typically, these are small teams made up of 4 to 5, sometimes 6 interdisciplinary students who work, again, arm in arm with the mentor and the inventor to accelerate the technology along some path. It could be write a business plan. It could be look for strategic partners. It could be, hey, go back to the lab and do these 3 things. It could be identifying the right customer, incorporating a company, raising capital, whatever is in the best interest of the technology at that time. A diverse set of activities that our students participate in. Typically that culminates in a night like tonight where we have a final presentation. It's our way of allowing the students to share with you what they've learned and maybe more importantly what they recommend. It's not necessarily a book report. It's more of a consulting presentation. These are the specific actionable steps that the university or the startup company or XYZ needs to take to continue the acceleration process to the market. Our students are fantastic. They are diverse in many ways. We have 14 interns this fall. They are supported by 3 former interns who we call team leaders. These are individuals who distinguished themselves during their CCW days to the point that they are interested and we are receptive of having them proceed with a leadership opportunity, the opportunity to lead like-minded, talented students in more of a project manager role. So it ensures some continuity in the program and really provides them a leadership development opportunity they might not otherwise have. Our students come from all walks of the university. We have business students, engineers, students from the arts and sciences. We occasionally have a law student or 2, MBAs, you name it. If you have a kernel of the entrepreneurial spirit as a student, we want to talk to you. The entrepreneurship buds across all disciplines, and we are, I think, are proof that it can be harnessed collectively in a nice interdisciplinary way. Despite their diversity, they have some common elements. They are all whip smart. They're intellectually curious, they crave knowledge, and they put in the hours to back it up. They have incredible work ethic. We ask for about 8 to 12 hours a week of them, but it's rare that you find the intern that only spends 8 to 12 hours a week. They are infected with the bug, and once you have a passion for something, this technology or the overall entrepreneurial process, it's hard to put down. It truly becomes a labor of love in many ways. And then finally, I would say that to an intern, they are mature beyond their years. If you think about the settings that we're putting these talented students in, oftentimes they're sitting across the board from a CEO or a potential corporate partner, or pounding the table to a venture capitalist saying, here's why you should invest in our technology, or trying to cut a deal with the university, here's what good licensing terms look like. And that's not a common experience for an 18 to 22-year-old student, typically. And so we look for that common thread of maturity so that they represent the university and themselves in the best possible light. So as diverse as they do share those important common characteristics. Tonight you will see 3 examples of some of OU's most compelling intellectual property. And you'll see examples of CCW's work in various aspects of the commercialization path. You'll see some technology that's reasonably early stage, which is still working on some of the laboratory requirements. You'll see some technologies that are in a pretty good position to maybe right now raise venture capital. And you'll see some technologies in between. And it's, I think, emblematic of the diversity of work product that our program is able to provide. So I've talked enough. I'm not the star of the show. The students are. And so without further ado, I would like to welcome our team working with Chemex.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We are Team Payne, representing Chemex Corporation. I'm Killian Naylor, English Literature Senior from Fort Worth, Texas.
I'm Felipe Armaza, Energy Management, minor in Finance, Senior from La Paz, Bolivia.
My name is Lauren Haller. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm a third-year law student with my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering.
My name is Robbie Miller. I'm an Energy Management and Finance Senior from Oklahoma City.
Also with us this evening are our team leader, Justin Briggs, our inventor, Ken Miller, and our team mentor, Ron Yagoda. I don't see where Ron sat. I would wave at him. There he is. Danielle already explained to you a little bit about the CCW experience as interns, but each team has its own story. And our story started by sitting down with Dr. Miller and discussing what the technology was. How did it work? Where did it stand? And then we went back and we researched that technology and we learned more about it. And we asked Dr. Miller the next questions we had. And by the time we learned everything we thought we could possibly know about the technology, we came down to two questions. What should the university do with this technology? And what should Chemex do with this technology? Those questions really drove our work for the rest of the semester. We started by diving headfirst into the pharmaceuticals industry and learning as much about pain relief as we could. Then, we tried to delineate 3 separate paths that this technology could take. And from those paths, we came to our recommendations. And we're going to follow the same timeline as we give our presentation this evening, so you kind of experience the same thing that we got to do. So, we are Team Pain, and pain is good. Pain is your body's alarm system. It tells you when something's wrong, tries to get you to keep from hurting yourself anymore. Unless, of course, it's chronic pain. Chronic pain actually deteriorates your body's ability to function. And let me give you an example. Our team mentor back there, Ron Yagoda, has arthritis of the toe. And when Ron's chronic arthritis kicks in, the pain keeps him from playing golf. And we can't have that now, can we? You don't want to miss out on your golf game. So what if there were something that you could put on your toe, Ron, that would stop that chronic pain? That'd be good, right? That's where Chemex comes in. Chronic pain is characterized by increased levels of glutamate at the site of pain. Glutamate is a neurotransmitter. Essentially, it's what tells your body that you're experiencing pain. And glutamate is synthesized, kind of created, by glutaminase. So if you can stop the glutaminase from working, you stop the synthesis of glutamate, and you stop the chronic pain. So on this path to market, we've already talked a little bit about innovation, but I want to tell you a little bit more. At this moment in time, Chemex has already done its first topical trial in animals. They've topically applied the Chemex compound to rats that have arthritis in their paws, and using both pressure and temperature tested to see that with the Chemex compound, the animals get 2 days of relief. It's a huge step. And what Chemex has done is taken an old compound and innovated, turned it into something completely new to really conquer chronic pain. Of course, innovation isn't where Chemex is standing on this path to market. It's already working with the intellectual property and the market research. And Lauren's going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Killian. So now that we've heard a little bit about the technology and the innovation, we need to protect that technology. And that's exactly what Chemex has done. Chemex currently has 2 pending U.S. patent applications. The first application is very broad, and it focuses on the inhibition of neurotransmitter synthesis, while the second pending patent application is very narrow, and it speaks to the glutaminase inhibition, which Killian spoke to. The Chemex Corporation also has an international patent, which is again very broad. The focus of Chemex Corporation is to produce a topical analgesic to combat chronic pain. And the current U.S. pending patent applications focus on the topical application, among other things. However, the international patent application does not focus on the topical form. If Chemex decides to enter the international arena, it will be critical for them to reevaluate their international patent status to include the topical application. However, Chemex does have strong intellectual property. However, one might ask, so what? What can we do with this strong intellectual property? Is there even a market out there? I'm glad you asked. Today, there are currently 40 million chronic pain sufferers. And as we know, for the next 17 years, each year, 1 million baby boomers will be turning 60. And as we know, with age comes pain. In 2006, the total prescription for pain management was approximately $20 billion, and it was the 4th most prescribed drug in the United States, only preceding medications for psychological disorders, medications for heart disease, and medications for allergens. The market is there. However, how does Chemex fit? Chemex has 3 major competitors: AstraZeneca, which produces Imla, Endo Pharmaceutical, which produces Lidoderm, and Johnson & Johnson, which produces Duragesic. These are the relevant competitors because of the method of administration. Each of these drugs are administered on the surface of the skin. Therefore, an individual does not have to take an oral drug, or they do not have to get an injection to get pain relief. However, the common usage of these drugs is general pain management, not chronic pain management. And as we know, the chronic pain management is a huge industry, and drugs for general pain management cannot combat chronic pain. Additionally, the Chemex Corporation, the Chemex Corporation product is a non-narcotic, non-addictive drug. However, one of its major competitors, Duragesic, is a narcotic, which means that it is an addictive drug. Additionally, we spoke to the delivery system, and the Chemex Corporation produces a cream opposed to a patch, which its competitors provide. Then there is the duration of relief. As Killian mentioned, the Chemex Corporation has seen approximately 48 plus hours of relief. However, with further testing, it is possible for that relief to increase. Additionally, the competitors have serious side effects which can be debilitating to an individual's daily function. The Chemex Corporation, while it has not determined its side effects, the low dosage in which the product will be produced is thought to produce less side effects than its competitors. And finally, there's the cost element. Chemex Corporation has yet to determine its cost, but it definitely will compete. The bottom line is that Chemex Corporation can compete with its competitors. Now let's talk about the numbers. In 2005 and 2006, EMLA and Lidoderm have seen significant increases in their market share, which is another indicator that the market is growing. However, the Duragesic drug has seen a significant decrease with respect to their market. And that is because in 2005, the Duragesic patent expired, which allowed generic drugs to come on the market. Additionally, in 2005, the Duragesic drug had to do a major recall because of its serious side effects. In the next 5 to 10 years, the EMLA and Lidoderm drugs will also see their patents expire, and generic drugs will come to market. However, all of these drugs focus on general pain management, not chronic pain management. The Chemex Corporation focuses on chronic pain management, and there are 40 million Americans currently suffering from chronic pain management. Therefore, it can be concluded that the Chemex Corporation is at the right place at the right time, and they can definitely compete. Next, my colleague Felipe will speak to the possible pathways to market.
Now we have already heard about the technology, the market. Let's discuss these possible pathways that the technology can take. The first possible pathway that we have identified is a license agreement. If OU will license this technology to a large pharmaceutical company, the equation will change. For the Chemex Corporation will be a scratch of this equation. However, the inventor will be entitled of receiving royalties for any for possible future incomes. A second possible pathway will be to Chemex to license the technology from OU, and in which case Chemex will be a standalone corporation. That means that the Chemex will seek capital, will bear the risk by themselves, and will push the products through a production market to get it to the end user. On the other hand, Chemex also can seek to form a strategic partnership with a large pharmaceutical company. In this scenario, Chemex will share costs, risks, and revenues with a pharmaceutical company. In order to analyze these possible pathways, we have created this decision matrix. As you can see in the x-axis, we have the 3 possible pathways that I just mentioned, and on the vertical axis, in the y-axis, you have the few of the decision criteria that we analyze in making this matrix. Of course, 4 stars are the strongest, and 1 star is the weakest. For instance, raising capital. Raising capital will be difficult if the technology pursues this stand-alone corporation. On the other hand, if we seek for talent, for people who will be working in a laboratory, or business people, or people with laws, working with laws, it will be more beneficial for the technology to go with a large pharmaceutical company, since large pharmaceutical companies have currently these people, and they can attract easily more people. So either a strategic license or partner with a large pharmaceutical company will be beneficial. Likewise, there will be a similar scenario in taking the technology to the market. Since these corporations have walked through this pathway before, they have taken the other technologies successfully to the end users, so that they have the know-how. And finally, we look to the investor and University of Oklahoma desires. Both of them would like to see the economy of Oklahoma to grow, to be more diverse, and to retain people within the state. So based on these metrics, we can conclude that the strongest possibility is a strategic partnership, and we also believe that the correct answer lies within a strategic partnership. Now that I have told you about the possible pathways, Robbie is going to tell you about the recommendations.
Well, so far you've heard about what the technology is, the potential market, possible pathways, but now let's look even further into the future and where Chemex can go with this. This is a standard depiction of the average cost and time that a drug takes to achieve FDA clearance in this country. So in the first section, you'll notice the clinical research. So that's the time that you're spending in the lab proving the efficacy of the product, that you actually have a product that'll work. And it leads to IND status, which is an investigational new drug application status. So what's that mean? That means the FDA will allow you to spend more money and more time to maybe eventually get an approval for your drug. So the first phase and the second phase and the third phase, each taking longer and more money. So, and eventually reaching NDA, which is FDA clearance for your drug. Well, what we've developed are 3 milestones which we believe will help Chemex Corporation lower the total amount of cost and the total time to approve FDA clearance. The first milestone is to prove the efficacy of the drug. It is very important for the scientists to be able to present the technology and the product to someone and say, yes, this works. Look, it's very efficient. You know, we have a product. Let's go to the market. Secondly, it is very crucial to enlist a CEO as soon as possible. It'll free the research team and the lead scientist to develop the technology further, to prove the efficacy of the product even further in different methods and whatnot. And the main job of the CEO will be to manage the company while the researchers are doing their job, and to raise additional capital, which can be grants, public grants, and private funding. So, upon the completion of these 3 milestones, we suggest that it's a perfect time for an additional second CCEW team to enter the picture. So at this time, while the 3 milestones have been achieved, several opportunities may have presented themselves to the Chemex Corporation. So this is an excellent time for the new students, the new faculty, to evaluate those opportunities and see what may lie in the future for Chemex. And finally, we have several recommendations that we would like to present tonight. The first is that Chemex must consider strengthening its international intellectual property. Currently, there's a weakness because the topical application is not included in the intellectual property. It is necessary for that topical application to be included, because without it, the international pain market cannot be penetrated to an extent. So secondly, Chemex needs to license the product as soon as possible. There are several opportunities that will present themselves, and without the licensing of the technology, they may not be there. The first opportunity that we suggest is the 2008 Bio International Convention, which is in San Diego. It takes place in June, and it will be an excellent opportunity for Chemex to, just step out and let the world see, we have a product that works, and gain some, some visual recognition. And also for the recently enlisted CEO, hopefully, will be able to, just go out and, fish the waters for additional funding, private funding and whatnot, and also for potential strategic partners. And also the enlisting of the CEO is important because while Dr. Miller and his team of researchers are continuing to prove the efficacy of the technology, he or she needs to continue raising private funding and applying for several grants. We have several listed here, the SBIR, the STTR, and whatnot. They are extensions of the National Institute of Health, which are all grants which Chemex qualifies for. So, in conclusion, we would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We'd also like to thank our team leader, Justin, our team mentor, Ron, and our inventor, Ken. We appreciate everybody for coming out, and at this time, we would like to open the floor for questions. Thank you.
This slide earlier that talked about the length of time that your competitors will alleviate pain. And then you mentioned in a subsequent slide that many of those drugs are going off patent. What is the difference between the chronic pain and the general pain? Why can't I just continue to apply the general pain medications on a regular basis, especially if they have a longer term of alleviating the pain?
I think there are two things to speak to with that. First of all, the 48 hours of relief that we show in this slideshow are from the first topical application trial, excuse me. And that was at a low dosage. So it is expected that there will be more than 48 hours worth of relief from one application of the lead compound in the future after second and third trials are done. Second, I would reiterate that the other medications do not directly address chronic pain. This product does directly address chronic pain. It actually acts on inflammation. So it helps reestablish that daily function.
And chronic pain is debilitating. It's debilitating to an individual's daily function. Whereas general pain, you can live with general pain, but chronic pain is very debilitating.
What are the research programs and the competitors? What are they doing?
We are aware of one product that will be coming to market into the spring of 2008, Voltaren. That is also a topical pain reliever. Beyond that was the only information that was available through our research, but it will be entering the market in the spring of 2008.
What company?
It is Novartis. I think there was a question back here.
Did you guys have any problems with animal protection agencies regarding your testing on animals?
No.
Not as far as we know. Dr. Miller has made it clear that the studies in the laboratory are humane, and they're also conducted with professional researchers, and the inventor has spent much time with the animals, and there's no reason for us to believe that there are any kind of problems concerned with the animals or any kind of inhumane treatment. So.
Yes, sir.
There are two questions. Do you have any data about not just how long the treatment lasts, but how long it takes to take effect? And the second question
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
is on the business side. In your fourth bullet down here, you talk about enlisting a CEO to facilitate capital acquisition. But in your previous slide, you also talked about the preferred mechanism would be to find a partner. So have you given thought to whether the partner might provide that leadership or whether the university needs to find that individual? So.
I would defer the first question to Dr. Miller. I believe it was 24 hours to
6 hours.
6 hours.
To an effect.
6 hours for effect, and the second.
And how does that compare to the other competition?
We do not know.
So if I'm hurting and I got a choice of 4 products and I want some relief, which one do I pick?
You pick Chemex.
So which one is that?
That's our product. That's the product which
So
focuses
I
on
get
chronic
relief in
pain.
5 minutes for this one and an hour or 10 minutes in the other
But
one?
if it's chronic pain, the other drugs cannot focus on chronic pain. It's
I
just
got that.
general pain.
I would also point out that Duragesic is a narcotic, so obviously you don't want to be putting on Duragesic. And Chemex is a topical cream. The others are patches. So unless you really want to wander around with a patch on your hand for the 3 days, I would recommend Chemex.
Very good, thank you.
Or your toe. I don't know. But to answer the question about the CEO, we believe that at this point, proving the efficacy of the drug is more important for the corporation. Securing an efficient technology right now is the crucial element. But enlisting a CEO to evaluate potential opportunities, as well as attend conventions where networking is a key. seeing what other major pharmaceutical companies are looking for. You never know what possibilities are out there unless you send someone out there where that's their job, and you keep the scientists working and to prove and get it to market faster. So,
Moreover, I would like to continue the answer. We recommend a strategic partnership. However, we didn't put a specific deadline for that, because if we are securing a CEO and we are seeking for capital, at the same time it's like having a deposit in the bank. We are accruing interest on the research that we are conducting. Therefore, at the time that we're going to look for the strategic partner, we're going to be able to have more material, and we're going to be able to have better negotiations and seek better terms for the company. So the more research we have, the better we can in better position we are to seek a strategic partner.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know about Chemex, but our company is, we'll call it, seriously undercapitalized at the present moment. And CEOs don't work for free. So how does one overcome that hurdle? I mean, it's very nice to recommend, yeah, go out and get an experienced CEO, but if you don't have, anything to pay them with, what are your options?
right. Well, we don't want to go ahead and suggest equity right away, but there are also lots of young, talented, professional people that could qualify for this type of position. And whenever you think of the word or the nomenclature CEO, if you're the CEO of your own company and you just happen to be the only person in your company, then you automatically assign the title CEO. So just to look at standard salaries of CEOs around the country is not, I think, to scale for what a corporation like Chemex would have. Where you look at the potential for the future, if a CEO can come in and really make a difference and really get out there and network and bring in the capital, bring in a possible strategic partner, I think that's what but enlisting a CEO would really benefit, or what the CEO would look for.
Arguing with you about the benefits of it.
Okay. I know I wasn't arguing with you either.
When you don't have any money, which I
Right.
presume is probably the situation that Chemex is in, which is very much like Dormitard, which is
I think that's happening more and more often, isn't it? That the younger individuals coming out aren't always being more salary, but working hard and
Yep.
acquiring.
Right. And also, Chemex may be seriously, underfunded currently, but there are several grants that have been applied. We've received unfunded grants currently, but in the future, it's looking bright as far as, bringing in $1 million or whatever the company needs. And that research is expensive, but if you look at other incentives for a CEO, then it's possible. So.
We got time for one more question.
Well, first off, great job. I'm not just saying that because one of my students is up there. Okay, so I like this idea of a strategic partnership. I think that Chemex is a bit young because I think that some of the pitfalls of a strategic partnership are similar to a licensing agreement when you're the weaker party coming into this. I mean, Johnson & Johnson, Chemex. But there probably are some models for some strategic partnerships, practical, that are out there. Have you looked into those? Are there a couple of strategic partnerships for firms that kind of look like Chemex with other bigger partners that you might want to mimic? Is there an example out there?
What we did was we went and actually spoke to a leader in the industry and discussed that there are pharmaceutical firms that are interested, both big pharma and small pharma, entering maybe not quite as early as we are, but after those 3 milestones that we delineated.
Excellent job. All right. Well, that was a great example of a student team taking a promising piece of technology, putting some pretty structured analysis behind it, and really charting a path forward, hopefully with some commercial success at the end of that. The team is unique in that it is, I guess, if CCW was a chapter in the world is flat, this team would be pretty close. Not only do we have a student from Bolivia, but the inventor, Dr. Ken Miller, is a associate professor of anatomy and cell biology at the OSU Center for Health Sciences in Tulsa. So it is like another country. In many respects, it is. It is taped, isn't it? Okay. Anyway, but he was very generous with his time to make frequent trips from Tulsa to visit us here in Norman, and we appreciate the effort you put in. Additionally, I'd like to recognize the team's mentor, Mr. Ron Yagoda, golfer extraordinaire, chronic toe pain sufferer, but a great sport. Ron is an extremely accomplished individual. He's the managing member of Dry AZ Consulting, which is an investment banking consulting firm out of Scottsdale, Arizona. So again, we appreciate the time that he's made to make frequent trips from Arizona to Norman to facilitate the acceleration of this technology. Ron himself has 39 years of investment experience, has started and harvested multiple entrepreneurial opportunities, and has provided tremendous insight to this group, which I think was borne out in their presentation. So please join me in recognizing those two individuals. Up next, we have an exciting presentation from Synthesized Nano Coatings.
All right, hi and welcome again. Thank you for coming. As Daniel mentioned, we are Synthesized Nano Coatings, but we refer to ourselves as Team Cotton. We're really the CCEW team that's been tasked with working with Synthesized Nano Coatings to progress this technology forward. And my name is Travis Webb. I'm an entrepreneurship and finance senior.
I'm Blaine Pinard, an entrepreneurship and venture management junior from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Hi, my name is Amanda Holloway. I'm an advertising and marketing junior from Plano, Texas.
My name is Tyler Ludlow, and I am a chemical engineering junior, and I'm from Enid, Oklahoma.
And I'm Chaz Gilmore, I'm an international business and entrepreneurship senior from Norman.
And our mentor is Rod Foster. Our inventor is Dr. Edgar O'Rear, and our wonderful team leader is Lyndon Lamb. So, as I was coming up here, some of you might have noticed this unsightly stain here on my shirt. It's kind of unfortunate that this happened today. It just wasn't a good day for this to happen. I feel like I've let my team down, keep concentrating on this, not on the presentation. But stains happen. I mean, these kind of things happen. So I'm sure some of you might have experienced a similar event. You're going to an early 8 a.m. presentation, and you got your mind focused on that presentation. Say you head downtown and go into the building, you got your presentation materials in your left hand. Of course, you got to get this day started right, so you got your coffee in your right hand, and you step on that crowded elevator, and of course there's that last guy trying to make that elevator, if it's the only one that's going to go up, those floors for the rest of the day. And he hops on, and of course we all know what happens, right? He bumps your arm, your coffee ends up all over you, and your mind ends up not on your presentation. So you flop the presentation, your boss fires you, and you head home. Your wife leaves you, she takes the kids. I mean, we're talking like this stain has ruined your day. So anyway, I might exaggerate a little bit, but that's the problem we're here to address, is stains ruining clothing and your day. And like I said, we're going to do this with a new technology. It's an exciting new technology that is a durable, cost-effective nano coating that's going to protect your clothes without the use of harmful chemicals, and it's going to maintain fabric feel, so it's better than what's currently on the market. Now we're going to show you a little video clip that actually shows the technology in action. And just to sort of clarify, this is a video of the first generation of the technology, which was addressing water repellency, but the second generation has now addressed stain repellency, like I just spoke about. So anyway, here goes the video.
The University of Oklahoma, in collaboration with an international partner, has invented a high-quality, water-repellent cotton fabric using nanotechnology. This new material is in fact a nanocomposite formed by a water-based, environmentally friendly process. An extremely thin coating instills hydrophobic character to the cloth while retaining the other positive features one expects with cotton.
All right, so there you got to see this exciting technology. And to give you a little overview of the presentation, we're going to start by talking to you about the opportunity and how not only is this an exciting technology, but it's also an exciting business opportunity because of an opening in a large and growing market. Next, we'll speak to you a little more about the technology and how it works and how our team has helped to facilitate getting this technology from the lab to the market. Next, we'll talk to you about a recent capital infusion that was a really exciting event for us because we were able to help facilitate this event. Then we'll speak to you about our IP and its current status, and also the status of licensing negotiations that we've helped both the university and the company with in order to come to terms on a deal between the two. And lastly, we'll make recommendations for the future of this technology and the company. So to begin with, like I said, this is a great business opportunity because it's a large and growing market. The technology-enhanced apparel market is growing at a rapid 18% per year, as you can see from the chart. By 2010, it's projected to be $25 billion. And another study indicates that some 50% of menswear could be protected by a technology like this by the year 2010. So next I'm going to turn it over to Blaine, and he's going to speak to you about how we've structured a business model in order to take advantage of this market and enter it with this technology.
Thanks, Travis. Synthesized Nano Coatings is an Oklahoma-based spin-off company. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's an Oklahoma-based spin-off company that will focus on research and development. We believe in this focus for two reasons. One, because research is what we're good at. As you can see, we're not into making shirts. We're not a textile mill. We can't produce chemicals. We're actually in the business of designing chemicals themselves, and that's what we do good. Second, we have a very versatile platform technology that we believe with further development will come up with new applications, possibly moving into the medical field, such as coating bed sheets or even scrubs, and maybe even coating boxes for maybe UPS. As you can see behind me, we have a royalty-based business model that shows Synthesized Nano Coatings striking a licensing agreement with the University of Oklahoma. This will allow the university to realize royalty profits as well as see the technology placed in the hands and in a research setting where it will allow the technology to further grow, further foster, and further develop. There you see Synthesized Nano Coatings has two options. It can sub-license to a large chemical company such as DuPont, or it could sub-license directly to a textile mill such as Burlington. After discussions with industry leaders, we've found that there are three barriers to market. The first is that the product must be effective. It must meet consumers' expectations. The second is that it must be very durable. After multiple washes, can it maintain and continue to meet those expectations? And third, the cost must be under 50 cents a pound. Now, we have found that the market is also actively looking for two more needs. The first is that there are no perfluorooctanoic acids, PFOAs, which are harmful in the environment, and also that the product maintains fabric feel and breathability, so your shirts feel more like cotton and less like some of the very coarse, hard technologies that you've seen come out on the market in the past. We feel these two emerging needs will give us a very competitive advantage when we move into the market. And now I'll turn it over to Amanda to speak more about these needs.
As Blaine mentioned, our first competitive advantage entering the industry is our lack of PFOA in our chemicals. Basically, PFOA can have potential harms in the environment. It is a man-made substance that is not natural in the environment. The EPA is currently doing some research to determine what the consequences of PFOAs could be. They could be causal of cancer, of birth defects, and high cholesterol as well. About 95% of our population does have PFOA in the bloodstream. So that means if you've ever cooked with Teflon or if you've worn some treated clothing before, maybe a new pair of slacks or a shirt, you have that chance of having PFOA in your bloodstream right now. The EPA has made agreements with DuPont, one of our competitors, and 7 other companies to start reducing the use of PFOA in their chemicals. So these companies are doing more research and development to find new substances that they can use to keep the same cost and efficacy that they have currently in the market. So as they're scaling down the use of the chemicals that they have right now, we are entering the market with something that has no PFOA, so the market is directing all of its consumers directly to our company. Our second competitive advantage is the breathability of our fabric. What you're looking at on the screen is a cross-section of the cotton fabric. There's 2 strands of yarns that you can see, and each is made of individual fibers. Our competitors' coatings go over the fibers, but they also clog the pores in between the individual yarns. So as you wear these products, it doesn't feel like the original product that you bought. Instead, it's stiff and harder to move around in. You're aware of the treating that you've put on your clothing. Our technology is a nanotechnology, so it coats each individual fiber of the yarns as its own component, and it doesn't clog the pores. So when you're walking around, going through your daily activities, you don't even think about what's on your clothing at all. You are wearing your cotton and you're comfortable and you look professional without being in trouble of getting stains or something that's spilling on your shirt. If you look at our competitors, the current industry leader is nanotech. However, they do use PFOAs and are currently trying to figure out where they can get PFOA out of their product. They're also facing efficacy problems in determining how long their product will actually last, as what they've given in their advertising. DuPont, which is Teflon, is also facing the PFOA problem, and they've actually taken away their advertising and marketing for clothing of their product because they don't know where their new chemicals are going to come from, how they can stay in the market. 3M, which is Scotch Guard that we've all heard of, is that coating on your clothing, so you can feel it. It's kind of like the raincoat feel. It's very stiff. But we have the PFOA-free product that also maintains that fabric feel. And currently, we're testing our products to determine the cost and efficacy. We have a couple different formulas that we can choose from, and Tyler can tell you more about that.
Now, keeping in mind that speed to market is incredibly important, we realize that we don't have the resources here at the University of Oklahoma, such as the equipment and testing facilities needed to really move our technology from the lab to the market in a decent time frame and at a reasonable cost. We decided it would be most prudent to seek outside expertise. This is why our mentor, Rod Foster, and I made a trip to North Carolina State University earlier this semester to investigate the potential of working with them to do some further testing on our technology. NC State is the foremost authority in textile research, so it would be a great place for us to do our research there because they already have all the resources and they have the knowledge to really accelerate the process. They also have a extremely well-connected in the textile industry, which could lend to the possibility of tapping into the large customer base. We are currently establishing a technical services agreement with them to do some more lab scale testing on our technology, and they've showed a strong interest in setting up a full-on research agreement, partnership that we'll consider if we decide it to be beneficial. The visit to North Carolina State helped us learn a lot about the textile industry and our technologies fit within it. Thus, a large portion of our team's effort this semester was devoted to facilitating progress on the technological front. The head chemist at North Carolina State, Jeff Krause, told us that our technology really needed to have 2 characteristics to be attractive to the industry. It needed to be PFOA free and it needed to be cost effective. This got us really excited because, as Amanda just mentioned to you, Dr. Arrear's technology is PFOA free, and based on some early some preliminary cost analysis we've done, it indicates that our product will be cost effective. We've also learned that our technology would fit best in the batch dyeing process. The batch dyeing process, there's a picture of it right here, is essentially a large washing machine that'll allow the fabric to be soaked in the solution as it's continuously rotated. Because batch processes are usually or primarily used on knit fabrics, we also determined that it would be wise to initially focus our efforts on clothing made with these fibers, such as polo shirts. Additionally, as I mentioned a moment ago, we have developed preliminary cost estimates thanks to the help from NC State that indicate that our product will be cost effective. And we've worked closely with Dr. Arrear on developing a test system that will help us define our optimal efficacy and cost profile for the technology. I'll now pass it to Chaz that has some information to give you on an exciting development that's happened in the past couple of weeks that's going to help us fund all this research.
As said before, we have some exciting news concerning the funding and financials of this technology. We have currently received an OCAST ORS grant. OCAST is the Oklahoma Center for the Advancement of Science and Technology. This is a high impact agency that delegates state funding to high-tech startup companies that will eventually come back in and positively affect the Oklahoma overall economy. One of the opportunities that OCAST has is the ORS grant, or the Oklahoma Applied Research Support Grant. Dr. Arrear, along with Rod Foster and our team, spent the first month of this semester working on the application for the ORS grant. And about 3 weeks ago, we found out that we were awarded $300,000 for funding for this technology. Now, this is a great thing for this technology because it's going to help us fund our lab testing as well as push through our pilot testing and into the commercial testing. Aside from funding, however, the application also helped us craft a short-term action plan. As you can see behind me, this funding timeline shows the funding uses and the funding sources for our technology. Now, before, we had the Inventors Research Funds, which helped us move through the lab scale testing, however, at kind of a meager pace. Now, with this ORS grant, however, it's going to speed us through the lab scale testing, through the pilot scale testing, and into the commercial scale testing. Now, as you can see, we do have a substantial amount of founders' capital. However, we will always be willing to entertain funding from VCs and angel investors at this time. So, with this exciting news about the ORS grant, we also have some other exciting news concerning our IP status as well as our licensing agreement. Our IP status, our technology actually has 2 generations. Our first generation, which Travis spoke to earlier, is the water repellency generation, and this semester it's currently been allowed. So that's extremely exciting. And the second generation patent, which incorporates the stain repellency, is still currently pending. Now, for the licensing agreement, this is the licensing workstream that we've developed. We've currently completed a first draft of the terms as well as kind of a rough estimate of the licensing agreement, as well as gain a great understanding of what the industry terms, as well as what synthesized nanocoding thinks about their terms. Now, 2 days from now, on December 6th, we will be meeting with the Office of Technology Development to gain a better understanding of the university's terms and also begin some preliminary negotiations. Now, with all this exciting news that we've had to tell you about, this opening in the market, our working with North Carolina State, our competitive advantage, funding for this technology, the IP status, our licensing agreement, we now turn to the future and with some recommendations. Initially, we feel that it's vital that we complete the licensing agreement because the new business model that Blaine spoke to earlier, as well as our funding, is contingent on doing so. Next, we recommend a spring CCEW team to maintain the contact with North Carolina State, as well as working on furthering the marketing research and also refining the the financial plan that we've created with the more and more information that we'll be gathering from North Carolina State, just to gain a better understanding on the costs. And also, we recommend that there's a creation of a business plan to go with that new business model that we spoke to earlier. Also, we recommend to further a strategic partnership with North Carolina State to utilize all those assets and all those connections that they have at the Mecca over there. And also, we suggest we constantly soliciting angel and VC funding to help with further this technology even faster. And finally, we recommend to open communications with potential licensees or the DuPonts or the 3Ms of the world. We feel that with these recommendations, this will help propel this technology even further than we have already. I would like to thank CCEW as well as the Office of Technology of Development and their staff. That was so very helpful in this semester, as well as our mentor Rod Foster and our inventor of this exciting technology, Dr. Edgar Arrear. we'd like to now open up the floor to the audience for any questions that you might have for us. So thank you.
Actually, I have two questions. You showed a graphic earlier in the presentation that showed how you were coating individual fibers and maintaining the pores. If that's the case, how are you being water repellent? Doesn't the water simply just go through the pores?
Well, it acts on each individual fiber, and the fibers are close enough in your fabric. When you're looking at it on the screen, we showed at a very micro scale so that it's easy to see. But when you're actually wearing it in your clothing, they're close enough where the pores are almost smaller than the water that's hitting it. So it's allowing those individual fibers in that to bounce the water off of it without letting it soak in.
And then you're mentioning throughout this Solicit Angel and VC funding, what would they be investing in? Is there already a company in place? Would they be investing equity in a startup company? Would they be investing in some sort of a venture capital fund? What exactly is the mechanism, the business mechanism that you're proposing?
Actually, as of just hours ago, our company, Synthesized Nano Coatings, has become incorporated, so they would be investing in this company.
Why not let DuPont invest in your company?
I think. Go ahead. Okay, I think our intentions are to eventually to further the technology, further develop the technology, and then license to DuPont. DuPont does a lot of research themselves, but mainly they produce chemicals. And what we do, like I said earlier, we design chemicals with Dr. O'Rear. And so I think we want to further the technology as a company, keep researching. Like I said, the focus is to research and develop, and then move that and eventually sub-license to someone like DuPont.
Has the prototype, either the water repellent or the stain repellent, been tested after a rip? Does the product still work if, say, there's a tear on your clothes, and would it still repel whatever stain or water?
Yes, there's the way it works is it actually bonds to the fibers of the shirt. So a tear wouldn't change the chemical composition of the technology as it's been applied to the fabric. For example, when this is processed, it'll be processed in large batches of fabric that will eventually be cut up to make, multiple shirts, pants, whatever it may be. So really, you're not changing the fabric by ripping, tearing, pulling. The technology really does is create almost like you've seen those repelling magnets. It creates that sort of force or that sort of detraction of water in the fabric to where it just rolls off. It repels that water. So it's part of the fabric and wouldn't. I think I answered a little more than you asked for, but yeah.
Has that been allergy tested? If it's in the product, has it been allergy tested?
Allergy tested?
Yes.
No, it has not, I think, and that is something obviously in the future that will probably have to be tested. But I think we are excited about the fact that we are using less harmful chemicals than the competition, and the competition being DuPont, 3M, these companies, I would venture a guess that they have done some of that research and being less harmful than them, using less harmful chemicals, will be in good shape.
You mentioned a lot about cotton. Is it possible to use it on other materials? Or is there something about it that only allows for use on cotton?
Well, the initial patent was actually for cotton, on the use of cotton, and that's sort of our foot in the door. Our initial market is cotton knit fabrics. Because
are there other companies, though, that are patenting a similar process with other fabrics?
Processes that maybe attempt to do the same thing, but not processes that would say be exactly like our process, but simply applied to wool or simply applied to some sort of,
So those are open avenues. So we're talking about cotton, but there
Right.
are all kinds of other open avenues.
And that's sort of the reason for the research and development company, is to explore those other avenues and eventually be in those other markets. The cotton was sort of a foot in the door.
One other potential application, for example, is to take polyesters, which they're just more or less water repellent as they are, but they're not particularly comfortable. So we turn those around and make those such that they would soak up water, maybe they would be more comfortable.
What is the life expectancy of the application on the material?
That's something that will have to be determined, and that's part of the reason for the further testing at North Carolina State University. They have what are called standard industry tests that are administered to the fabrics to test the water repellency and the efficacy of the treatment, and also the durability. So they'll run it through 5, 10, 20, 30 washes and test efficacy at each of those levels. So that'll be something that'll be done with the funds we've now obtained. So we'll be finding that out in the future.
You know, you talked about the process of the batches. Couldn't they just, when they're making the fiber, couldn't they, what is it? Right. Instead of doing the batch, you said that you would take the fabric and put them in the big vats. Couldn't they, when they spin the fiber, couldn't they cut the fiber?
Right.
Those typically come in two different processes. What you're talking about is when they're actually spindling the yarn and interweaving it. That's done at a separate mill.
Right.
Typically what most mills are doing, they're taking all of that fabric that's already been made up, and they're either dyeing it. That's what a batch process is. That's how they dye the clothes. So that's not gonna take place in the same mill.
Couldn't this process be done when they're spinning?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
I think part of the issue, though, would be that our technology really needs to soak onto the fabric for a semi-extended period of time, and that period of time is something that we need to determine. But that's the reason for this washing machine type processing, is that it's going to be in this chemical for a long period of time, so as to be able to coat onto the fabric and set.
We have time for one more question. Dr. Porter.
Can you see your stain one more time? That's a good one.
The coffee stain, yeah.
Dr. O'Rear more than once. He and I could both use this. I have two questions. Sorry, but I'll throw them in there. Earlier, Amanda, I'll address this with you. That slide showed menswear. What happened to women's wear?
I think we're initially starting in a market that it's business clothing, it's your dress shirt. So starting in the men's industry, we can easily put that on women's clothing as well. I think that's just was the initial.
So the projection for the total would be much bigger?
It absolutely can be.
Women are more careful.
Yeah, men need it. My other question is, given the relationship and the point that was made about North Carolina State, and we all know the Carolinas are the textile center of this country. Have you given some consideration to some kind of joint collaboration with that university and cutting them in on the equity so that we could incentivize them to connect to the private sector a little better?
Yeah, that's what the full-on research partnership would include. What it would include, to be specific, is if they would have input into the testing. So if they found a better way of applying it, we would still have all the rights to the chemistry, but now they would have the IP to the application.
Yeah, but I'm talking about giving them 25% of the company and intellectual property for folding in all of their contacts and their IP, so it's a joint venture between the two universities. So we really get them excited about the opportunity at EPSAT here, and we leverage off of their connection and their capability rather than just hiring them to do it.
Right. It's definitely something that the company might be looking into.
All right, great job. Again, the students, I think, provide a pretty compelling case for an exciting technology originating here at the University of Oklahoma. Again, that their efforts are a product of their own talents and also those of the inventor, Dr. O'Rear, and their mentor, Rod Foster. So please join me in recognizing them for their hard work this semester.
I'm proud of that team. Not only for their hard work and effort and what I think they learned, but also the tangible commercial successes that they are on the path to achieving. This is a technology that has been promising for a period of time, but I truly feel it regained significant momentum when it came in contact with the CCEW beginning this summer and then continuing all the way to next spring. To have an incorporated spin-out company as a result of the effort, to have acquired capital, and to be thinking about strategic partnerships is real progress, and it is why we're here. So good job, team. To conclude tonight's presentation, we are going to hear from the team working with Nantiox.
As Daniel said, we're Team Nantiox. I'd like to thank you all again for coming to tonight's presentation. I'm Will Cunningham. I'm an English and Chinese senior from Lawton, Oklahoma.
I'm Derek Perkins, computer science, mathematics, and Russian senior from Enid, Oklahoma.
My name is Chris Schilling. I'm a psychology junior from Yukon, Oklahoma.
John Woodson. I'm a junior in chemical engineering from Lawton, Oklahoma.
And Kim Saylor. I'm a finance and accounting senior from Edmond, Oklahoma.
And we're Team Nantiox. And with us tonight is our team leader, Val Myers, our mentor, Dr. Lloyd Hildebrand, and the inventor of our technology, Dr. Jim McGinnis. Unfortunately, not with us tonight, but also played a very beneficial role in our team is Dr. William Piven, another one of our mentors. In this semester's CCEW interns, we've been working with Nantiox Corporation in its efforts to develop this technology and get it to the market to help prevent blindness caused by age-related macular degeneration. But before we get into the formal aspects of the presentation, I just want you all to stop and think for a moment about what it would be like to live with the growing loss of vision caused by age-related macular degeneration. Simple tasks that we take every day, you lose the ability to perform simple tasks that we perform every day. Things like reading the newspaper or checking your email you can no longer perform. Faces of loved ones become harder to recognize, and street signs and buildings become indecipherable. Even this very slide that you're reading right now and all the other slides you saw before lose their clarity and get lost in the haze. While these look like simple black dots on a screen, it's a living reality for millions of Americans. And it's going to be a living reality for millions more as America's population continues to age. But we believe that Nantiox offers a valuable solution to this growing problem. Just a brief overview of our presentation tonight. We're going to go into the opportunity that we feel Nantiox has to make an impact in this growing market. From there, we'll go in to discuss what our technology is and what it does, and we'll proceed to discuss our business strategy and the next steps that we see the company is taking to get this drug to market. As you can see here, this is the inventor, Dr. Jim McGinnis, with the Nantiox particles on the most recent cover of OU Medicine. This just goes to show how excited OU is about this technology and how excited we are to be working with this technology and in our efforts to help get this to the market as soon as possible. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Derek to tell you about the current situation.
So who are our potential customers? How many people can we help? There are currently estimated to be 12 million Americans suffering from macular degeneration. Now this is a big number, but it's only going to get bigger. A few weeks ago, a very dramatic event occurred in our society. The first baby boomer applied for Social Security benefits. We are now seeing only the beginning of the transition of this generation in the retirement age. Why is this important? AMD affects up to 20% of the people 65 and older, and is the leading cause of blindness for those over 55. As you can see in the chart here, the number of people affected by macular degeneration is increasing dramatically. By the year 2030, there will be 70 million people over the age of 70, making up 20% of our population. And it's estimated that there will be 30 million people suffering from macular degeneration. As the population ages and the baby boomers advance into their 50s, 60s, and beyond, there will be a virtual epidemic of macular degeneration. So as you can see, our market is quite big. And now John is going to talk about the technology that's going to take advantage of it.
All right, first I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our technology is and then what it does. Nantiox particles are nanoparticles. Now, many of you may not know what a nanoparticle is. Well, these are a couple of examples of different nanoparticles. You can see that they come in different sizes. They have different functions. You've heard about some nanoparticles already tonight in Team Cotton's presentation. But what's really important about these nanoparticles is their size. They're incredibly, incredibly small particles. To put it in perspective, think about a human hair. The diameter of a human hair is 60,000 nanometers. Now, these Nantiox particles are 2 to 5 nanometers in length, so they're incredibly, incredibly small. So now that we know what a nanoparticle is, let's see what Nantiox does. Nantiox is a cerium oxide nanoparticle, and before I go into the formal explanation of what it exactly does, I'll give you a little bit of a history about the nanoparticle. This particle was developed at the University of Central Florida, and through an interinstitutional agreement with the University of Oklahoma, the university has gained the rights to research this technology in the area of preventing retinal diseases, as well as licensing the technology to companies such as Nantiox. The patent for this research and for this technology is currently pending. Now, what the exact particle does, it is a cerium oxide nanoparticle that acts as a reactive oxygen species scavenger within the eye. Now, these ROS species are some of the major components that cause blindnesses in the big retinal diseases affecting the elderly population. These ROS species attack the eye cells that allow you to see and initiate a cell death pathway, causing the cells to die and causing you to lose your vision. So basically they work as an antioxidant, and we've all heard about antioxidants and how good they are for the body. But here we'll show you what the impact that Nantiox has had. This is a picture of one of the animal models that we've currently done on a white albino rats. And as you can see, these dark spots on the screens are the retinal cells, the cones and rods that allow you to see. And this picture is taken right next to the optic nerve. Now, these are healthy retinal cells. Now, what happens when we increase the number of reactive oxygen species in the eye? As you can see here, the number of cells decreases dramatically whenever ROS is introduced. This causes, as like I said, cells to die and vision to be lost. But what happens when we pre-treat the eye with Nantiox particles and then expose it to light and increase the ROS? As you can see here, the retinal cells protected by the Nantiox particles are alive. There are many of them, and they are not significantly decreased as they were by the presence of the ROSs. So this has shown you that the Nantiox particles are very effective. And to go into our competition and to other methods of treatment, I'm going to pass the presentation off to Derek.
So who is our competition and what are we up against? Previously, the only FDA-approved treatment for macular degeneration was laser surgery, or more specifically laser photocoagulation, which is a procedure that utilizes a laser to seal off leaky blood vessels in your retina. This procedure is falling out of favor with physicians, however, because the side effects are quite severe. 5 to 7 years ago, a new breed of drugs started receiving FDA approval. These drugs attempt to inhibit the growth of these leaky blood vessels. Lucentis, a Genentech drug, has a majority of this market and projects to bring in close to $1 billion in sales in 2007. Lucentis is, however, hardly an ideal treatment. Each treatment costs up to $2,000, its efficacy is relatively low, and it again exposes the patient to repeated treatments. Now, currently, there's a new breed of drugs seeking FDA approval that utilize ROS scavengers that John introduced you to. Athera has a drug currently in phase 2 trials that we see as being our eventual competitor. Even though it is our competitor, there is something to be gained by the fact that it is already in phase 2. Athera's model validates our use of ROS scavengers as a method of action to prevent blindness. So why are we better? What sets us apart from Athera? 2 main reasons: chemical makeup and longevity. Athera's drug in trials requires patients to receive treatments 3 times a day, daily, every day for the rest of their lives. Nantiox would require dramatically fewer treatments. Also, Athera's compound is organic, whereas Nantiox is inorganic. This means that Nantiox should elicit less of a defensive immune response from the patient and therefore result in lesser side effects. Now Chris is going to talk about our strategy.
So John and Derek did an excellent job of pointing out what exactly our technology is and how it relates to the competitors and how we think it's a viable product. Now, how are we going to get the product to the market? Now, as we mentioned, the market is AMD is what we're approaching. We're going to do this through an orphan drug pathway. Now, this is kind of unique because an orphan drug pathway means we're going to actually attack a completely different disease called retinitis pigmentosa. retinitis pigmentosa, or RP as it's been known, has a similar cause as age-related macular degeneration. But in addition to this, it is known as an orphan disease. Now, real briefly, just to fill you in on what an orphan disease is, it's recognized by the FDA as a disease that affects a relatively small number of individuals. We're talking 100,000 as opposed to millions for macular degeneration. Also, there's no current treatment for it, so FDA allows all kinds of pathways for us to approach the market in an efficient and cost-effective manner. Now, as we move on, we're going to also form partnerships with contract manufacturing organizations and clinical research organizations. These are the guys that are going to help us both manufacture the particles and conduct research to move us through the FDA pathway. Now, as we all know, we cannot conduct research without significant funding, so we're looking for $5 million of A-round financing from venture capitalists and other sources. And all this will culminate ultimately in an exit strategy. At this time, we anticipate this exit strategy to mean that Nantiox will sell the company to a larger pharmaceutical company later in phase 2 or early in phase 3 development. Now let's take a look at the FDA pathway to see what we're up against. Here we are looking at the AMD FDA pathway. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to go with retinitis pigmentosa, our orphan disease. But this is a great scale model of what it might look like. Initially, we're going to work on preclinical tests. Basically animal toxicology studies. Is it effective on animals, and is it safe on animals? Now, moving on, our purple arrow moves along here to phase 1, 2, and 3, and this is about toxicology studies, dosage optimization, and efficacy in human beings. Now, in about 10 seconds, our purple arrow has spanned 10 years and incurred about $87 million of debt. Dreaded purple arrow. But at this time, 10 years down the road, we would file, if we were to choose this pathway, we would file a new drug application, which finally would allow us to market the product to consumers. But as I said earlier, we're going to do something called establish a proof of principle in another disease called retinitis pigmentosa, and then sell to a larger pharmaceutical company. Now look at the immediate benefits of showing that it works on an orphan drug. Obviously, you can see it takes 3 years less, 7 years, instead of 10 years for macular degeneration. Also, this is a big deal, cost. $87 million for macular degeneration, whereas it only costs $17 million to develop the product through retinitis pigmentosa. So as you can see, we're going to save $70 million, which is an incredible benefit for both the company and our potential investors. Now, to further elaborate on the company, the financial prospects of the company, Kim's going to talk a little bit about the return on investment.
Thanks. All right. Now, Chris has made what I think is a great case for why Nantiox will choose to pursue the orphan drug pathway rather than the standard macular degeneration trials. It's cheaper, it's faster, and in effect, there are less barriers to entry in this market. But you can see that even in this very small market, the return on investment is huge. After 7 years, after phase 3 completion of these trials, we would expect that a company that has progressed to this point would have an evaluation of about $200 million. But most importantly, these studies establish what we have referred to as the proof of principle. That is, that this treatment for retinitis pigmentosa would likewise be effective for macular degeneration. And what that essentially allows Nantiox to do is to indicate to those pharmaceutical companies that they can receive returns along this kind of scale, much, much larger. In fact, after 10 years of macular degeneration studies, after phase 3 has completed, a company that has progressed to that point would have a valuation of about $800 million. So we feel that Nantiox has the opportunity to not only significantly affect those people affected by macular degeneration, but also to receive significant returns in the process. But before Nantiox can progress to that point, they have to accomplish a few very important business milestones. I'm going to break these down into three streams and then build them together so that you can see how they play out. First, the scientific milestones will largely define the operational path of the business. They're currently in preclinical testing of this drug, and we expect that it will move to phase 1 of human trials in 2010. Phase 2 and phase 3 will follow shortly thereafter. The regulatory milestones are those that deal specifically with the FDA. In 2010, in order to move into human trials, Nantiox will need to submit an investigational new drug application to the FDA. They'll actually meet with the FDA a few months prior to this point to review their preclinical data and make sure that they are ready to make that transition into human trials. Now finally, on the business side, we feel that Nantiox has accomplished one of their first very significant milestones. Last month, our team had the opportunity to negotiate the Memorandum of Understanding that will serve as the basis for our licensing agreement, licensing this technology from the university. Next year, following the completion of that milestone, we'll expect that Nantiox will begin to build their team as well as pursue venture capital funding. But before we move on, I'll put these milestones all together so that you guys can see how they play out. Essentially, we just want to show you that we feel Nantiox has a strong plan and a strong vision for what they plan to do in this market. But before we move on to the next stage of our presentation, I'd like to take a second and talk to you about our licensing negotiations. Our team had the very unique experience and very impactful experience of being able to participate in these negotiations. Not very many students our age would ever get an opportunity like this. Now, at the beginning of the semester, there were some very important intellectual property agreements already in place. First, the patent that the University of Central Florida holds for the manufacture of these particles, as well as, through the interinstitutional agreement, the patent that Dr. Jim McGinnis has applied for the use of these particles in to treat retinal disease. Now, the utility patent is currently pending for the patent of those use of those particles. But before Nantiox as a company can move on with the testing, they must license this technology from the university, and that's where we came in. In preparation for these negotiations, we did two very important things. First, we researched key terms of licensing agreements. We've learned about what they were and how they would affect each of these parties in the agreement. Secondly, we met with both parties. We tried to understand their perspective and which points would be of particular importance to them. Finally, we held an all-hands meeting in which we brought together members of Nantiox Corporation as well as the Office of Technology Development. In the end, we were very proud to have accomplished this big milestone and signed the Memorandum of Understanding that will serve as the basis for the licensing agreement. Therefore, Nantiox has secured use of this technology and will be able to move forward with the testing. But now that this milestone is out of the way, I'll let Chris talk to you a little bit more about the next ones.
Thank you. So as Kim pointed out, we had a very fortunate opportunity to work with both the Office of Technology Development and Nantiox to formally negotiate the terms for a licensing agreement. We believe this is really going to be a foundation for the company to move forward in the coming months and years. Now, because we got to work so closely with the technology over the past semester, we've become pretty familiar with it, and we've come up with some recommendations for both Nantiox and CCEW over the coming weeks and months. Initially, we recommend that Nantiox complete a formal business plan highlighting the drug development plan and an operational strategy. To do this, we recommend the CCEW team be carried over to the spring semester to execute this. In addition, what I mentioned earlier, we need to begin seeking capital. We also recommend a financial team through CCEW to work with Nantiox to begin searching for A-round financing. As I said earlier, we're looking for $5 million for A-round financing. In addition to this, Kim mentioned we need to build a team. We need to hire some key personnel, such as a CEO, as mentioned in some of the other projects, as well as an FDA representative that can help us get through or navigate through the FDA process. We also need to continue our relationship with the inventor and hopefully Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Jim McGinnis. And finally, we need to form partnerships with the CMOs and CROs to aid us in both manufacturing and conducting research as we move along the FDA pathway. Now, given if all this happens, we believe Nantiox can become a significant role and even the poster child for an emerging biotechnology industry in the state of Oklahoma.
To conclude tonight's presentation, Nantiox has a vision for sight and is the right solution to the growing problem of age-related blindnesses. This is an increasing problem, and it's going to affect tens of millions of Americans in the near future. The current treatments are inadequate, and the current market is underserved. Nantiox is ahead of this competition, and it is in the right place to take advantage of this market. Nantiox has the right people with the inventor, Dr. Jim McGinnis. It's at the right time on the eve of the baby boomers' ascent into retirement, and is in the right place here in Oklahoma to fully develop and take this technology to market. And with that, we'd like to thank you all for coming again to our presentation and open it up for questions.
I know that there are a couple different styles or types of macular degeneration. Is this technology applicable to all of those, or specifically the wet type?
There are, yes, two, wet, dry and wet. Wet currently makes up only 10% of the total
macular degeneration population, and that is what we are going after specifically right now. There is no drug, there is no drug currently FDA approved to treat dry, the 90% of the people. Using ROS scavengers, there is the possibility, the definite possibility that we hope eventually to enter that market of dry. But right now we are only going for the 10% wet market. Yes.
ROS, well, and to kind of add on to his what he said, the role of the reactive oxygen species in dry age-related macular degeneration is not completely determined. They do play a role. It's not exactly, the research right now hasn't determined what exact role it does play. So it is quite possible that this could be applied to dry AMD, but right now we just don't know.
This actually might be a question for Dr. McGinnis, but with your product affecting basically the retina, does your product affect the rest of the eye? And if so, how does it? I see this as kind of a big problem or a big help for you guys in the future in developing this product, because you're either going to have side effects or those side effects could be positive for you and you can develop, further expand the product. So is this something that you all have looked into?
Right now, I think, and that's a good question. Right now, as far as other side effects, where the particle goes in the eye, that's part of the current research, something that hasn't been determined yet. So we don't exactly know where all in the eye it affects or where it goes from there. So again, that's something that we're currently researching.
Dr. Howard?
When you mentioned return on investment, did you use IRR? Two questions. Did you use, one for you, one for Chris, did you use IRR or any other net present value or other financial tools? Return on investment can be a little problematic. That's one question. The question for Chris is going to be, you mentioned FDA representatives for taking this thing to market or taking it to the trials. Are there firms who can outsource to actually take it to the clinical trial process without growing a full-on infrastructure to actually, a big company with all sorts of FTEs? So
the return on investment is calculated just very simply from the capital that we expect to be invested in those trials, the phase 1, 2, and 3 trials, as well as preclinical. But then the return that we see is based on the typical valuations of a company that's progressed to that point. So we consulted with Dr. Paiva, our mentor, to kind of understand some typical valuations, and then just simply from the capital in and return that we foresee, that's our return on investment.
And in response to your other question, the FDA professional, we were recommending sort of a regulator, one person to work with the company to help navigate through the FDA process. To move this research to another place, that's what we're essentially going to do through the clinical research organizations. These are specialized entities that use good manufacturing practices and good research practices. And what these guys are going to do is basically, they do this for a living, is they test other materials and other drugs for the development. So if we contract it out to them, we're essentially saving time and money. If that answers your question.
How is this applied? Is it an eye drop, an injection, a pill, or what? And secondly, could this be used to treat other reactive oxygen species-related diseases, free radical-related diseases, strep pop?
Currently, it is being used in the animal models as an injection. However, the particles are so small that we feel very strongly that it could be used as an eye droplet. So that's something that would be a major contributing factor to our technology, because the current treatments are bi-monthly injections. So, if it had to be an injection, it would be no worse because the treatment would last longer, so you would still be getting an injection. You wouldn't have to be going back several times a month. But ideally, we could be looking at an eye drop. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Could you use this same technology to treat other reactive oxygen species-caused diseases throughout the body?
Yes, you could definitely, and that's one of the other things. A lot of the other major eye diseases have this same problem with the ROS. So it actually could be used in things like diabetic retinopathy, cataracts, and in areas like that, and other areas in the body. I think that AMD was chosen because it's the largest of the eye market, and so we just made a decision there. But again, that's one of the big reasons why establishing a proof of principle with RP is a good idea, because then big pharmaceutical companies can say, okay, it's effective at working as an antioxidant, so we could apply this in a lot of different areas. So yes, it could be.
One question. So the orphan, and I may just not understand completely the distinction, but the orphan drug pathway, taking that the 7-year, it'll be 7 years, correct? The 7-year approach versus the 10-year approach. Does the time by which you can actually start selling a drug for macular degeneration, is that lengthened at all by taking that approach, or would it be?
It shortens the research process for macular degeneration. It doesn't, once we prove the principle through RP, we still have to conduct research for the other diseases to show efficacy and things like this, but it shortens that process significantly.
So if you took the macular degeneration route, that's 10 years from now. If you take the orphan pathway, then the macular degeneration route, are we talking 15 years, 17 years?
Well, throughout that process, it doesn't necessarily have to be 7 years down the road before we start establishing that proof of principle. Once those phase 1 and 2 data start coming in, that's the point where we'll start being able to show those results to interested larger companies. What's very important about the orphan drug is many large pharmaceutical companies are not interested in developing a drug right from its inception. So when we progress through the studies, and with retinitis pigmentosa in a very small number of people, it allows us to show that to them, and depending on the market, depending on companies' interests, can go ahead and make that transition or see it through retinitis pigmentosa before we move.
Sort of like a study model, but a real disease.
Time for one more question.
So does the financial analysis for the pigmentosa product work? I mean, can you get a return on investment with that deal without considering moving to the macular degeneration?
Sure. There are definite financial benefits, even in a market as small as retinitis pigmentosa, if only for the fact that there are really no existing treatments. So we anticipate that we would be able to significantly affect those markets and glean those returns. The specific data that we gathered, again, Dr. Paiva helped us a lot to come up with those numbers. But yes, we see financial benefit even in the small market.
For large-scale pharmaceutical companies, they're not interested in a small disease like retinitis pigmentosa because it only affects 100,000 people. They're interested in larger diseases such as macular degeneration and other things that affect millions and millions of people because that's where the money is. So for us, it is more, although we get to help these people, it's really a stepping stone into a larger market.
But the question is, will investors put money into the company when you're really just talking about a small market and not a big return?
That's where the business plan comes into play, and that we show that we're moving in the right direction and going to move it over to larger diseases such as macular degeneration.
Well, I think that's also why we show the macular degeneration market, because when we approach those pharmaceutical companies, right.
Aren't you, just a point of clarification, was it your suggestion that the next point would be late stage 2, early stage 3 of RP?
Yes.
Right.
So you just need to draw that parallel for a big pharmaceutical company that there is this big market.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
I think that's what they're trying to get at.
Great job.
Again, a nice job by the team, a compelling opportunity, again, facilitated by Dr. Jim McGinnis and the dynamic duo of Dr. Hildebrand and Dr. Paiva. Dr. Hildebrand is the CEO of another spin-out company of OU Intellectual Property, so he definitely understands what it takes. And Dr. Paiva is a longtime venture capitalist in the state of Oklahoma, which was very helpful with some of the financial analysis. So you can again see the texture of the mentor program and how it comes into play with the overall CCW experience. So let's recognize the inventor and mentor here. All right. Well, I know it's getting close to 9, and I can't operate computers. Okay. That's a heck of a picture, Chris.
Just closing the laptop.
How does that work? I don't know. Okay. Technology commercialization, right? Okay, well, it's progress, like our team's progress. I just want to conclude with just a few remarks. I think this event gives us the opportunity to provide sort of a status check on how we're doing as a program. CCW has 4 main goals. The first is to broaden exposure to the entrepreneurial process. The second is to provide real-world entrepreneurial experiences for talented students of all academic disciplines. The third is to accelerate the move of OU-based intellectual property into the marketplace, and the fourth is to facilitate a culture of wealth development for the state of Oklahoma. Regarding broadening exposure, we obviously hold events like this, again, reaching out to the community. Our boot camp this year was held in conjunction with the Office of Technology Development and the Price College of Business's Center for Entrepreneurial Studies, in which we invited approximately 100 Oklahomans, many of them entrepreneurs, many of them private sector mentors who played sort of a mentor for a day role, and we developed commercialization roadmaps for approximately 12 promising ventures for the state of Oklahoma. Again, an example of outreach. And finally, we gave our students a compelling platform at a symposium that we held, again, in conjunction with the Price College Entrepreneurship Program and the Honors College Leadership Center, where we invited the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Lance Cargill, to come down and hold an idea raiser for his 100 Ideas Initiative for Oklahoma's next 100 years. And that was an opportunity, really a platform for our talented students to say what they think, to provide their perspectives. What state do you want to live in, and what is it going to take to get there? And so the opportunity for an affirmative voice in our state's development, and hopefully that will drive a portion, at least, of our legislative agenda going forward. Real-world entrepreneurial experiences, I think tonight's presentation speaks for itself. We've got companies incorporated and licensing deals being cut and business plans on the horizon and all sorts of fascinating experiences that are not common for the average 18 to 22-year-old undergraduate student and not even common for many of our graduate students elsewhere. Accelerating moves of OU technology in the marketplace, clear, tangible steps, as you saw tonight. And then finally, promoting a culture of wealth development for the state of Oklahoma. And I think that to change the culture, you have to change it with people. You have to attract and retain the best and brightest minds you can. If you're blessed to have them indigenous to the state, as many of our interns are, you have to do everything you can to keep them here. And to provide compelling opportunities. Our program is just a stepping stone. There are many more that we collaborate with and that we partner with to ensure that the most exciting, relevant opportunities to this generation of talent are made available. And we're seeing many of these students staying in Oklahoma, staying with knowledge-based entrepreneurial opportunities and really pursuing their entrepreneurial dreams. We have at least 2 examples of that in this class of interns alone. Finally, before we break, I want to thank someone very special to the program, very special to the university. This individual has been serving for the past year as the operations manager for CCEW, and in that capacity, she has literally kept the place humming. I think she is adored by all of our interns. She is a 30-year veteran of the university and is recently retiring from the university. I don't think there's a department here at OU that she hasn't run in some form or fashion in her time here, and we hate to lose her, but just like our intern, she too has caught the entrepreneurial bug, and in her retirement she will be pursuing an entrepreneurial based opportunity with one of OU spin-out companies, which CCW actually had the pleasure to work with in the spring, Southwest Nanotechnology. So please join me in recognizing Wanda for her service. One housekeeping point, many of our students in CCW also are part of the Honors College Leadership Center. If that applies to you, there's a photo opportunity we'd like for you to take advantage of following this presentation. We've talked a little bit about the past of the program initially and the present, which you saw tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the future. And in doing that, I'd like the following individuals to stand. Tyler Bolton, Matt Brown, Lala Chaffee, Adam Kroom, Amber Edwards, Julie French, Sam Galoob, Mike Harrison, Robert Hefner V, Michael Linville, Michael Sarche, Stephen Watts, Kristen Weed. These will be the spring 2008 CCW interns. They are our future. Welcome them with me. And finally, your patience will be rewarded. We do have, I think, a bevy of refreshments in the atrium. So please hang out, get to know our students and your fellow colleagues in the room. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us.